After testing the recent Genji changes for 2 weeks, I have to say, I can't believe we lived with slower projectiles until now. I actually feel effective on poking, even if I won't actually be getting eliminations from mid to long range. On the other hand, the ammo nerf is a bummer, but it's a completely fair trade-off, and one that I would take any day of the week. It's not even that hard to get used to, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What everyone wants to know is, why would a character that excels in close range ever need a buff to his poke? Well, there are multiple reasons actually, and that's what I want to get at in this video. We'll talk about Genji's general gameplay flow and why it's so important for him to have a solid poke tool, the matchups changed with this patch, as well as how to adapt to the ammo changes. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Yes, Genji is at his best up close. He does want to take isolated duels and in general just dive squishy targets like supports. If he had the choice, he would spend the entire match in this range, but that's simply not possible. First, we have to consider everyone's positioning. Long range characters will play longer sightlines, while close range heroes will attempt to close the gap through flanks to avoid taking a disadvantageous trades. This, of course, will be met with a counter rotation in an attempt to maintain distance, and so this game of cat and mouse will continue until either party makes a mistake or gets their back pushed against a wall. Just from this alone, we can already see how much time is spent outside our most effective range, and there is still a lot more to talk about. For my next point, let's take a look at low-rank Sombra players back when she had infinite stealth duration. Having the same goal as we Genji mains do, they would use their superior setup tool to access the enemy backline undetected, waiting for their chance to strike. Being patient was crucial here, as they needed to make this flank count, so they waited for the right opportunity, for as long as it took, to come out of stealth and get active. The moment their tank engages and the backline is distracted, oh, the opportunity never came. And why would it? By staying out of the fight for so long, her team was slowly beaten in a 5 vs 4, meaning she never got a chance to act. See where I'm getting at? Flanking the backline isn't bad, quite the opposite. However, there's a time and a place for everything, and so the correct approach was to take a shallow angle early in the fight to apply some good pressure on whatever target was available, getting a small advantage that would give her time to deepen the flank without leaving her team at a disadvantage. Rinse and repeat until the end goal is reached. This is why Genji wants a solid poke tool. He's not trying to beat characters better than him at range, he just needs to be able to apply decent pressure outside his most effective range so he can eventually achieve a point-blank engagements. We can even go one step further by looking at Tracer's design. She doesn't need a second mode of fire since her mobility is strong enough to enable close-range poking, as weird as that sounds. In one way or another, flankers need to have an option to dish out early pressure without committing to a play, as otherwise they would either be too risky to run or an insane disadvantage in the battle for positioning the game constantly revolves around, making them bad choices for most team comps. Now that we have addressed Genji's unintuitive gameplay flow, it's time to talk about the matchups affected by these changes, starting with the dev comment that for some reason only shows up in the press version of the patch. Genji's shurikens can feel inconsistent against fast-moving targets. Increasing the projectile speed will make them more reliable, while the ammo reduction helps offset the added effectiveness. Using this extra bit of information, we can now see the exact objective of these changes: turn previously unfair poke trades between Genji and characters like Tracer and Echo into a more skillful duel. This is especially important when you consider how often flankers have to fight each other, seeing as the off angles they want to take are usually the same place their counterpart on the enemy team wants to use to set themselves up, resulting in constant fights for space control where the winner gets access to the opposing backline and the loser is forced out, becoming incapable of making meaningful plays anytime soon. In the past, this meant picking Genji in dive mirrors was a liability, as he would take L after L against other flankers that could outpoke him and were essentially immune to his dash engages, as failing to hit a very difficult combo would make him a sitting duck just waiting to get eliminated. But now, Genji can more reliably apply pressure without committing, leveling the playing field. There is also another important factor here when it comes to hero design. This dot right here represents hitscan weapons, and will serve as our starting point. From here, we can draw a line that extends infinitely, representing projectile weapons that have increasingly slower travel speeds. If our baseline represents a 100% correlation between mechanical skill and shots connecting, then the further we move away from it, the less skillful aiming becomes, and the more it comes down to luck, as no matter how good a prediction is, if the target doesn't match it, the shot will miss. This is incredibly important to consider, as after a certain point, putting effort into aiming won't feel worth it anymore, since luck will be the main factor determining success, alienating the player. In Genji's case, this meant that poking often felt like a complete waste of time. And you know what the result of that was? The death of his range dynamics, making his only objective closing the gap on his targets, removing any interesting decision making about what to do at any point and when to transition from doing one thing to another from his kits. Why do you think I named this channel Harmless Poke? In conclusion, buffing his projectile speed is an excellent idea not just to fix specific matchups, but also to engage the player more in a previously very luck-based action, and strengthen the interesting range dynamics that make choosing the right option so hard yet so fun on this character. To compensate for this added power, the devs decided to nerf his ammo by 20%, keeping his overall poke pressure relatively the same as it was before these changes, although slightly more targeted. At first, I definitely felt the 2 missing shots, but in less than a day I was already used to it. This is because the change doesn't actually matter all that much. Genji still has a lot of ammo, which is plenty when bullying tanks and more than enough when dueling squishy targets. If you're still exposed when you run out of shurikens, then you either miss too many shots or pick the wrong engagement. Or, well, you just forgot to check your ammo right before going in to see if you should reload preemptively or not. Oops! With that being said, I would be lying if I said there are no downsides to this change. Animation cancels are a core part of most Genji mains' arsenal, and the most common one, secondary fire into dash, quickly burns through his shurikens during long reset chains, which is one of the flashiest and most beloved forms of skill expression on the character. Imagine you are popping off, eager to finish off your last target to end your clip on a high note, and then you have to reload. While it's important to keep the balance of the game good, making sure heroes are fun and fluid to play is also crucial for player retention, and so I have a suggestion that achieves the best of both worlds. Keep the current ammo count, but change dash to reload 3 shurikens. This would keep his poke pressure unchanged, while simultaneously addressing this very specific yet highly important problem, making everyone happy in the end. Who am I kidding? The player base would freak out at a niche Genji buff like this, and the fun police would be called to stop this nonsense immediately. But hey, maybe we can get something like this as a perk one day? Who knows? If you would like to know more about the dynamics in Genji's kit, check out this video covering topics like positioning and timing.